Okay guys, now for the fruits of my labour, not just metaphorically but literally in this case. And the fruit I'm speaking of is the humble tomato. Now I planted 3 tiny tomato seeds into my terracotta pot over there. It was Tuesday last week, it's Monday now, so they've had 6 days to germinate. And one of them has actually done that. Either that or it's a weed, but I'm going with it's actually one of my tomato plants has germinated, and it's quite thrilling to see life blossoming like that. Now here we go, it's coming in close here. Hopefully this camera will focus in on it. We'll see how close I can get with this new camera. But there it is there. There's the budding of new life, and that will be a tomato plant bearing fruit presumably in a few months' time. There's 2 more seeds that I've planted on the other side of the pot there, but there's no life there yet. But they always seem to germinate ahead of what they say on the guide, on the pack. That's my experience anyway, and I think they said they're probably just covering their asses. It's the usual sort of thing that companies do to under promise and over deliver. Usually they say it takes a couple of weeks or so, I think, for them to germinate, or 10 days to 2 weeks. But like I said, this happened in 6 days. Now I didn't put them in particularly deep into the potting mix, and here's a special potting mix that I got for tomatoes, specifically for tomatoes from Bunnings. That mix over there, and I also got myself a little one of these sprayers from. This was from the reject shop, and this was $1. I think it's about 500ml, but it's got a nice fine spray there. I'll give you an example of what it looks like. It's pretty reasonable. See, there's quite a nice spray. You can vary the amount, and what I've been doing is moistening the potting mix, just using this, so it's quite gentle. As you can see, it doesn't affect the leaves even on the seedling that's small. I'm expecting the others 2 to germinate. Generally I have fairly good luck with these plants, and if all goes well, what we should have at the end of the process is something like that on the cover there. We should have that, a nice red juicy tomato. I just did a little bit of research onto the humble tomato. Sorry about the kids screaming in the background. Remember, I am living right next to a daycare centre, so that's just one of the hazards. But I do have this beautiful scenery out here to look at as a compensation, so that's very nice. But what I was going to say is that I did a little bit of research on the tomatoes, and apparently they weren't cultivated until about 700 AD, which is a fairly recent time for something like a staple like that. I'm not sure when the potato came online, but I think that was actually cultivated 1,000 or so years prior to that. I might be wrong, but I think it was earlier. And it was in the Andes, and it was places like Ecuador, Chile, and right up into the Central America, South America, Central America. So 700 AD is when they first were thought to cultivate it. The humble tomato came to Europe in 1600. Thanks to those wonderfully benevolent Spanish explorers who just love the native people. A lot of sarcasm there. But what was interesting about that is when they introduced the tomato to the Europeans, of course, it would have been the rich who first off got a taste of them, because they would have been an exotic new food source, like getting exotic spices and the like. But what they did was, the people who had money, they ate the tomatoes off plates made out of lead, and which is not good when you're eating tomatoes, because tomatoes are acidic, and apparently the acid in the tomato leaches out the lead. So as a consequence, when people ate tomatoes, the rich rate tomatoes in the 1500s in Europe, they became sick. However, the twist in the tale here is that the poor, they couldn't afford the plates of that quality. They ate on wooden plates. And of course, wooden plates had no problem. We do it today. You know, we have a normal crockery and what have you. And if it's normal crockery, you don't have a problem. But you don't have a problem if you're eating off wood either. And that's what peasants did back then. And of course, they were the ones who were the first adapters to this new exotic fruit that was exported from South America and Central America. So that's a nice twist in the tale. It's good to see that the poor didn't get it up the rear end for a change, and they actually they were the ones who were the first ones to take advantage of it because they were poor. So maybe there is some nobility in poverty, and some not just nobility, but it may be good for your health in certain ways too. So that's a nice little twist, I think. But anyway, I've got high hopes of this. Of being able to cultivate plants and actually have a supply of tomatoes up here all year round because of the fantastic weather we have here. So that's my plan. Geez, I wouldn't want to be working in the childcare industry. Hard yakka. But I'll just extricate myself from out the back in the balcony area because it is rather noisy. I'll make sure I retrieve my my tomato seeds though. So that it's very exciting, I think, to just see new growth like that and see them develop. I've actually got to go to Melbourne in about a week's time, but I think by that time the seedlings should have established enough to last a few days before I get back, and I'll be able to water them again. So that should be okay. But yeah, it's been a while since I've done a bit of gardening. I haven't done any gardening up here yet, but it's a bloody paradise for gardening because you don't have seasons. You can basically plant stuff all year round. Obviously certain things need a colder climate, you can't do that. But for most plants, it's fantastic. So I'm going to get right into it. I've got some flowers that I'm going to sow as well, but I'll do that when I get back from Melbourne, and then I'll try to ramp the whole thing up, and I'll be doing a few trips to Bunnings and ferrying across a few pots, and also getting lots more potting mix. So when I get fully going, I think I should probably have about a dozen pots out there, I think. So that'd be good, a little mini garden. Really looking forward to it.